Wow, there has been a lot of exciting releases from the Horizon Hobby Losi camp lately, and this right here is one of them. This is the Tenacity DB Pro. Now, if you're familiar with the Losi lineup, the Tenacity name is probably familiar to you, even the DB. There has been a DB before, and it's been a great buggy. It's four-wheel drive, electric, and it's just great for all-around off-road use. But Horizon and Losi have really been changing things up lately, and they've released some new smart technology through the Spektrum brand, so I think they saw it maybe as an opportunity, I'm just guessing here, to revamp some things and give us some new and exciting products, and this is definitely one of them. The DB was cool, and this one is much cooler. Now, let's talk about some of the features on this, and there's a lot of changes since the last one. So up front here, we do have the Fox livery on this particular vehicle. I love the look of this. There is also a Lucas Oil livery that you could get. I'm excited about the Fox one. I think this looks pretty cool. Nothing against Lucas Oil, but I do like the Fox head logo on this, and it just looks awesome. You know, they've got a partnership with Fox, and they're using it, and they've created this cool paint scheme on the buggy body here. You know, we've got Lexan panels up front, up top, on the sides, all pre-painted from the factory, and even all the decals are applied from the factory as well. We've got the plastic wing out back, gives it kind of that racing look that I always like. I love putting wings on things. I've even put wings on monster trucks. It just looks cool in my opinion. I do like the look of it. Got tethers on the body clips up front, which makes, you know, retaining the body clips really easy when you're swapping out batteries. And finally, we've got this LED light bar here that looks really, really cool, lit up. It's even pre-wired from the factory, nicely secured with zip ties and everything. You don't have to do anything there. And I should also mention the interior. So we've got a full interior. Driver's heads are molded. We've got decals inside. It just really sets the look of this buggy off. Now, to get to the battery on the inside, all you have to do is pull the two front body clips, and the body actually hinges up. There's two very long screws in the back that secure the body, so it makes battery access really easy. I, of course, have taken those off, so I can basically show you the inside of the vehicle. There's the inside. We've got the full cage in there that actually keys to the rails here, so it makes it a nice, solid body for this particular buggy. Now let's take a look at the inside of the vehicle, and it, you know, again, it's going to look similar to many of you, but there were a lot of changes. So Losi actually came out with a Performance kit where you could take your DB and put an optional chassis on there, and in the kit they also had shock towers and shocks and turnbuckles, and all that stuff is on this buggy, which makes it really, really cool in my opinion. It is all the upgrades that I would want to do to it. It was, you know, in that kit, and so they basically put it all on here, and it's really cool to see because I think it makes it a really high performance buggy that I don't think you're going to need to do anything to. You just run it as is. So let's start off with the front with the changes. So we've got the aluminum shocks on here now. So the original DB had composite plastic shocks, and you know, these Losi aluminum shocks, so much better. Nice threaded bodies on there. They feel really good. I mean, it's a Losi car. The suspension always feels good on a Losi car, and the suspension and drivetrain on this are proven. It's from the 8 line. It's derived from the 8 vehicles. So that's a championship winning design that they've basically put on this and their other Tenacity vehicles as well. But back on track here. Love the shocks on here. Aluminum caps, so you don't have to worry about it pulling off. Thick shock shafts. They do mate up with an aluminum shock tower, both front and rear. So you know, the shocks are aluminum front, rear. Shock towers are now aluminum front and rear. Really thick one in the rear, and you know, should hold up to cartwheels and tumbling and stuff like that. The original DB had composite plastic shock towers, so again, like the aluminum swap out here on this. The other big change that I noticed is it does have these bulky tie rods on here, adjustable turnbuckles, and what's nice about that is you can go and adjust your camber and toe, you know, if you want to go and do some tuning, where the other DB, it had composite links, which, you know, if you're just a basher, that's fine, but if you want a little bit more, you know, a little bit of tuning, that's when tie rods come in nice and handy. Now the suspension arms, the caster blocks, the steering knuckles remain pretty much unchanged from what I could tell. You know, nice solid front suspension arms on there. I don't think I've ever seen anybody have a problem with those. So, you know, that's going to work out really well. Got a sway bar up front, aluminum ball ends on the end of those sway bar links and everything. And again, the suspension works really, really well. In the rear, same thing. We've got nice bulky suspension arms. We've got the turnbuckles on the rear as well, and composite hubs on on the outside. So the suspension, again, proven, and can't wait to go and drive it. Let's move on to the drivetrain in here. So again, it's kind of 8 inspired. We've got a front, center, and rear differential in here. Now, in the original Tenacity kits, the Tenacity Ready to Runs, they actually just used 2 spider gears on the inside, and sometimes that failed with some people. I even had a problem with it, but now they have the full 4 gears in the differentials. I went and took it apart just to double check. Yes, it is 4 gear in there, and they are oil filled, sealed differentials. They're going to work well. And, you know, steel outdrives, steel CV axles, front and rear as well, but the centers are dog bone. You know, not a problem there. You don't need CVs in the center for this, in my opinion, but it is nice to see them on all 4 corners. So that pretty much wraps up the drivetrain. Ball bearings, we've got aluminum motor plate here as well, and a composite spur gear, so it's plastic. But the drivetrain works really well on this. You could go and adjust the position of the motor if you want to, and it's all sealed. So even the pinion and spur are sealed on this, so you don't have to worry about dirt getting into it. All right, let me move on to the chassis before the electronics. Now, this is a new chassis for the DB. It's from that performance kit. The original DB had a composite chassis. So we've got a nice aluminum chassis on here now, and it's even milled to reduce the weight of the chassis. So again, performance in mind here. We've got these small little dirt guards on the side, and then the battery mount. So the battery mount right here, the old one you used to put the battery in from the bottom. Here you have to put the battery in from the top of the chassis, and it's a nice simple mount. Just one single clip holds the strap down, and I've actually already gone ahead and put the battery strap risers in here. There's these little posts that raise up the battery strap, so I could go run this thing on 3S. You can run on 2S, 3S. I'm of course going to go right for the 3S. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I already put the risers in there. They give you the hardware and the post for that, and there is foam to help damp any vibration or shock to the battery there. So nice setup. And there are chassis braces, both front and rear, that go down to the chassis, and then we've got the main chassis brace across the top. All right, that rounds out the chassis details on it. Now let's get into some of the electronic details. I'm not going to get into all of it right now because I do want to go and test out the smart technology on this, and I'm going to talk to you about all the details on that in the performance part, but I'm just going to go over what comes with the kit right now. So let's start off with the servo. We've got your standard Spektrum 605 servo here. It is a plastic geared servo. Might have wanted to seen something a little bit better there, since the other electronics are pretty impressive, but it should do fine to get you going. Let me actually just talk about the steering cranks pretty quick. It does have a servo saver bell crank. It does have an aluminum Ackerman bar there, and it's the proven Tenacity steering cranks that do offer plenty of steering throw. Now, back to the electronics. Let me turn this thing around so I could show the receiver. It does have the new Spektrum receiver in there, and it's got a long name, so I am going to look at the label. It's the SR600AT. Now, it is the AVC receiver, so it's going to give you that active vehicle control to help with the stability of the vehicle. It also allows you to use the telemetry that is in the smart system here as well. So it's a really feature-packed receiver, and everything on here is waterproof. I want to throw that out so I don't forget it later on down the road. But moving on to the speed controller over here. This is the Spectrafirma 130, 130 amp speed controller. It is a big speed controller here. It's got a cooling fan on top, nice heat sink. I like the orange wires on it. They really did good with you know, creating a cool look for the speed controller. Does have a push button, on-off button over here. Again, sealed with a little rubber boot on top, and there's your set button on the side. And here, check this out. A 1/10 scale vehicle with the IC5 plug. Usually we see this in the larger vehicles, but I guess they know we're going to put a lot of power through this, so they gave us the larger plug like that. And here is one of those sensor wires that's going to send the voltage signal over to the telemetry. That stuff is just going to be very cool to test out. Can't wait to tell you about that a little bit later. And then back here we have the 3150 kV Spektrum motor, all wired up. The gear mesh is set from the factory, and that's just going to provide a ton of power to this. Definitely like the changes on the DB. I like that they have basically the performance kit in here, That's awesome. I like how it's got this new Spektrum telemetry stuff in there. That's just going to be very cool to play with. And now let me show you some of the other stuff. So this is the DX2E active radio, and we've seen this in a number of their vehicles before. What's nice about this particular radio system, it does have this knockout plate in here, so you could go and put their speedometer on there, or I believe they've got a cell phone holder as well. And then you can pop this out in the back, this plate in the back, and that is where you install the optional Bluetooth module. I already have it. I'm going to go and install that. That's how I'm going to go play with everything. Tell you about the smart technology at the end of the video, but this is an optional thing. I would suggest going and grabbing that. All right, beyond that, you know, again, it's got the AVC in there, so you could adjust that with the trim knob if you want to. And then finally, we've just got some of the usual paperwork and stuff. This sheet of MIP stuff. Apparently, MIP has some products for this. We've got the connector guide. We've got a couple of tools in here. There's a box wrench and Allen wrenches. There's some of those screws I took out for the battery plate. And then we've got the pinion gear. And of course, the manual as well. Definitely read through that. But I'm excited to go out and drive this thing. I am going to go, you know, to my usual off-road test site. It just screams that this is the right spot to go and test it out. So let's go outside, see what this thing could do. And of course, I'm going to play with that smart technology stuff so I can tell you how it works. Alright, so let's get right to it here. Now, when I create my video reviews, I do my best to give you all the information I can about the vehicle and the performance, so ultimately, you can make the decision if this vehicle is right for you. And hardly do I ever say, yes, go out and get this vehicle, you gotta have it. This is one of those instances. If you have been looking at the Losi Tenacity DB Pro, pull the trigger and get it. This has been a great experience testing this vehicle out, and I completely recommend it. In fact, it is my favorite Tenacity vehicle of the line. I think they did a fantastic job with this car. And I have the TR, that was a favorite of mine, and the MT, but this one blows it away. I am just truly impressed with everything that it had to offer. So I drove it at the BMX track. I drove it at that Sandlot where I always test a lot of vehicles, and I beat this buggy up, and it took all the abuse I could throw at it. Now, let me start off with the power of this machine. It has a lot of power on 3S. I just ran it on 3S. You know, I had the 2S experience with the older Tenacities, and this one was just so much fun. I mean, the tires would just grow. It would have tons of traction. It would spit dirt out of the back of it, and it just has all the power on tap that you need to have fun. Whether you want to go off of jumps and just get major air time, you want to slide through a berm and chuck dirt into the air, it has the power to do that. I really like the power system on here. My only little critique about the power system is the bottom end of the throttle feels like it's a little coggy. I mean, just at the very bottom, so if you're just going by at some low speeds, you might feel just a touch, but most of the time you're going to be at full throttle, and this thing is just pumping out plenty of power. It is truly awesome. Onto the steering of this, I actually dialed down the AVC on the radio system a little bit, and I just wanted to feel the driving experience, and I felt it drove a lot better with the AVC dialed back, so I had full control of it, and it has plenty of steering. It just goes everywhere you need it to go, whether you're on a loamy surface or if you're on a hard pack surface. That stock servo in there, it worked just fine, and it has definitely plenty of steering throw, especially when I get to the Spektrum Dashboard. I'll tell you about that experience in a little bit, but steering is on point. Handling. I don't know who set this up at the Losi camp, but they did a great job of getting an all-around setup on this buggy that will handle a number of different types of terrain. So, you know, out in that sandy dirt lot, this thing was all over the place, and it was on all four wheels the majority of the time. I rarely had to go and flip this thing over. Over on the BMX track, and I gotta apologize for that BMX track footage. That is GoPro Hero 7 Black number 3, and the stabilization like cut out on it. But anyway, over on the BMX track, this thing just floats over the jumps. You know, any little bumps or ruts do not upset this buggy. I think they just set it up so perfectly. Again, the driving experience was awesome. Loved jumping this thing. It just floats through the air. It lands really plush, and if you're going big air with it, yeah, you get some chassis slap. But for the most part, it stays on all four wheels when you land. And you do have the AVC helping you out. Like I said, I dialed it back. I didn't totally cut it out on the radio system. And so I was able to watch the wheels correct a little bit as it was flying through the air awkwardly. But it would always land on all fours. I mean, again, majority of the time. But they did a fantastic job. I love the look of it. The light bar on here is really cool. Onto, you know, maybe some little issues I had with it. The head broke off of the driver, so that was a little bit of a bummer. I lost my driver head there, but I actually used an old round servo horn to brace the bottom of the driver's head. It broke through the plastic, so he's back in there. He's alive. He's well and ready to go some more. The other issue I have is the body is a little bit awkward to set down sometimes. I don't know if it gets hung up on some wires or the clips are just not going into the chassis well. So just, you know, kind of watch yourself when you're putting the body on. Make sure it's sitting in there properly. The only failure I had with it is the tires. I blew off 3 of the 4 tires so far. The outside where, you know, it just glues into that kind of shallow area of the rim on a short course style of rim. It just wasn't glued well from the factory, and luckily I had some dynamite glue. I always carry that in my go bag, and glued the tires right there at the track and kept on going, so that wasn't too much of a bummer. These tires actually have some great traction to them. I was pretty impressed on multiple surfaces, whether it was asphalt or that packed dirt or the loamy dirt. These tires worked really, really well. This thing is tough, it's strong, I love the way it works. All right, now it's time to talk about the smart technology that I kind of mentioned earlier on. So again, this is fitted with the Spektrum Firma ESC. We've got the Spektrum telemetry receiver in there. And so when you have that, you could go and get the Bluetooth module, which I have right back here, and you could drop this in, and that allows you to use the Spektrum Dashboard off of the App Store, and you could see some of the telemetry readings of the car. And when you use Spektrum Smart Battery, you could even see the voltage as well. So that was really cool. That was a great part of the driving experience. A way to make life a lot easier was being able to see how much power I had left in it. You know, because you're out there running a long time, and like at the BMX track, you're walking around, going to different jumps and stuff like that, and you lose track of how long you've been running things because there's gaps where you're not running the car. So with this installed, that this little extra sensor wire in here basically tells the telemetry system, the Spektrum telemetry system, what to show on the dashboard. And right down here is the drive pack voltage, so you can see right there, right on your radio system, what the voltage is. The other cool thing is it does tell you the temperature for the speed controller. So if you're running on a hot day, you're worried about your electronics. You should always worry about your electronics. They've done a great job here of creating a electronics package that cools itself and everything. But there's always those chances. Nobody knows how far you're going to push the car if you're going to run pack after pack after pack. So you'll be able to monitor the temperature of that expensive electronics item right here. And this dashboard, it's actually really nice. It's really easy to use. So once you put that Bluetooth module in, when you turn your radio system on, there's a little Bluetooth symbol right up top here. You just touch that. You pair it to the Horizon device that it shows, and basically you're ready to go. Now, actually, there's a little bit more. You go over into the model section here, and my phone is upside down. Let me flip this around. There we go. And when you scroll through here, you could go down to model type, and you can input the type of model that you're going to use with the telemetry system. So there are a bunch of models already pre-programmed in here, so you can go select that nice and easily. The other thing you could do, you go to status, and you could see the status of your throttle and your steering here. So you could go into this and actually set your sub trim for your steering. You could set your travel limits for, throw left to right. So that's really helpful, really useful, really easy to access. Same for the throttle as well. And then in the settings portion, that's where you could go in, change the name for the app. There's even another spot for model setup. Social, I guess you could connect to some social elements there as well. And then in the about section, and actually I just want to go and throw this out. Make sure you're on application version 4.3. That is something that held me up a little bit in the review. This was getting finalized through iOS, and now that it's set, I was able to go and test this all out. So by the time you're watching this, this should all be available to you. And then telemetry set up here. It goes through all the different things that you could set up. You could fine tune your pack voltage, your receiver voltage. You could do speed, RPM, and temperature here as well. So you could set up the alarms and endpoints there. And then channel setup, again, we mentioned that before. So there's actually multiple ways to get into the different elements that you could tune. And finally, drive mode, which is very cool. And it's not showing up because I don't have everything connected. But they have Spektrum's 4 different drive modes in there. They have trainer mode, slick track mode, if I remember correctly, stability mode, and full rip. But you have that right at the touch of a button here. You could go and toggle through that. So if you want to go and hand this over to someone that's sort of new and wants to try driving it, you could go and easily pop it into trainer mode. Again, the active radio system will allow you to do it. You just need that Bluetooth module in order to really, access everything. And then this phone mount is actually pretty handy too. This is a separate option that you could buy. And again, it basically turns your radio system into a smart radio. But they did a fantastic job. Like I said, this new telemetry system that's integrated into the receiver with the AVC, it just opens up so many new ways for you to experience your car and manage what's going on with your car, visually see what's going on with the battery packs, these new smart battery packs. I'm going to have a review of their S2100 charger very soon now that I've had a chance to play with these for a while. Just a great, easy to use battery system. With the telemetry, you'll also be able to see the RPM of the motor and most importantly, top speed. And just right out of the box with the optional pinion for the 11.1 volt battery, I hit 44 miles an hour in there. You could probably go and put the bigger pinion back on and get even more speed out of it. But at least you know right out of the box with a 11.1 and the 15-tooth pinion, you'll hit 44. It's just so cool to see that right there on your phone as you're driving it. That way you don't have to go and stop stop and pull a speedometer out of your car, it's right there, right in front of you. You know, Horizon has really built a great RC experience here with the Losi Tenacity DB Pro. You know, like I said before, guys, if you have been looking at this buggy and you want to go and experience a desert buggy that performs super well, this is a great package to get. It will definitely give you tons of off-road fun and performance.